Yeah, sorry, I got angry. Hello and welcome to Saving People Queering Things, the podcast where we talk about ghosts, road trips, and free will through every episode of the retro TV series Supernatural.
Today we will be exploring season 3, episode 6, Red Sky at Morning, through the theme of arrogance.
I'm Abigail, one of your hosts. My pronouns are they, them, and I have two wonderful people with me today. We'll start with Elayna. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Indeed, I am your friendly co-host, Elayna. I use pronouns she or they, and I am super excited to talk about this episode because for once, it's not an episode where I'm like, this is my favorite thing in the world.
You might have critiques of this episode?
Yeah. People will be surprised to know that I do not, in fact, think every episode of Supernatural is flawless.
With us today as well, we have a new guest. Allie, do you want to introduce yourself and maybe tell us a little bit about what your experience with Supernatural has been?
Hey everyone, I am Allie. Pronouns are she, her. And I'm very excited to be in this podcast. And for everyone listening, if you hear dog barking, that's me. So yeah, I got into Supernatural literally last year and it's been a whole ride. I got into the show for a friend. She didn't tell me to watch it, but I knew that she was a big fan. So I was like, I gotta watch this because she and I have a lot of things in common as well. So I was like, if she likes it, maybe I will. And that was my demise.
So the things we do for friendship.
It's the perfect way to describe getting into Supernatural. That was my demise.
And at the beginning I was like, this is so funny. This is so good. And well, we know that it's not always funny, not always good. But yeah,
Shuffle's note cards for today's episode.
That's how I got into the show, and it's been a great ride to just be a part of it.
Wonderful. It's fun to see all the people who have come to the show fairly recently. I think it's great. I love seeing that people are still attracted by this show even now.
Yeah.
Post finale and all of that.
Eventually it's going to become a period piece.
Yeah. It kind of already is the early seasons.
Yeah.
Whenever they pull out a cell phone, I'm like, oh, I remember that.
And the jeans as well. It's 2003.
All of the females' outfits, any girl's outfit is
oh, they're so
Screams 2005.
I'm glad we moved on from that being women's clothes or women's style clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one that really got me on a recent rewatch was Dean mentions MySpace, and I was like, oh dear God.
There are people watching Supernatural, not a small amount, who might not know what MySpace is.
Yeah. There's got to be a handful. There has to be. Because now if the show started in 2005 and it is now 2022, that means there are people who are getting into the show who were not alive when it started.
Yes.
There are teenagers getting into the show
who are not born. My favorite thing is comparing ages of anyone we have on and finding out what character are you the actual age of, because Noah, one of our co-hosts, is a similar. Wait, is he similar age? No. Am I getting this right? I want to get this right. No, did we say Noah was similar age to Ben Braden?
Oh God.
Oh my God.
Is he? Oh
no
Ben
way.
Braden is not that young.
Not anymore. Oh
he's
God.
Well, you compare Ben and Claire, and they're not.
Wait,
that
how
far off
old
in age.
is Ben?
So Ben is in 2000 and
we have to find out now.
I've looked this up a bunch of times.
Now I'm really curious
Clearly.
because I believe that I'm around that,
So it's in season 3, so it's about 2007. So in 2007,
he's 8 years old.
He's 8 years old. So he's born in about 1998, 1999.
Oh my goodness.
So let me just point out that I am the same age as Beth.
Yeah. It's my favorite thing to find out. It's what age?
This is so sad. I did not want to know that.
Yeah. I'm because the character that I'm the close. Okay. So
Claire's younger.
So in season 12, okay, what year is that? That's season 12 is 2016. She's 20 in 2016.
She's older.
She's 20 in 2016. Yeah, she's older than Ben, but by how much? She's 20 in 2016.
6 years. She's
20, so she's 20. Yeah, Claire's the one that's the closest in age to me. So I just turned 27. So Claire and I are the same age, which is wild to me.
I guess, well, I'm I'm like season 5 or 6 Dean Winchester at this point.
I realized I finally hit the age where I'm like the same age as Dean now for the next 15 years in some seasons. So I'm like season 2 Dean age now.
He's 26.
Yeah.
So 2017, 29, 30,
He's 26.
Yeah,
and you're
I
like
am
you'd be like
I'm season 5 Dean's age.
and then you'd be
Really?
like somewhere like Sam season, one of Sam early season ages.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am like,
Yeah.
so this was very fun to find out. Let me just say that.
Kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's kind of
That
fun.
one, this might be an entire blooper, but
I mean, they should
Very-
include this, like, for
this is quality content here.
Quality
it
content.
really is. It always is. We're research, so it's valid.
Exactly. We're just
I love it.
we're just proving how much we care about this show by
Knowing all of the
knowing
ages.
random trivia that means nothing.
Yeah. The amount of random things I know about Supernatural that I probably should it's pretty boundless.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's useful knowledge.
Speaking of things that we know about this show, which is the stupidest segue ever, but
Hey,
we'll
you
go
know what?
with it.
It kind of worked.
It kind of worked. We'll go with it. It is now time for our 30-second recaps for both today's episode and the road so far. Abigail is going to do the road so far for us this week. So are you ready to sum up season 3 so far?
I mean, you know, we're at the part of this season where it's easier to do this season recap because there's only been 6 episodes.
Yeah. So there's not a ton to remember.
There's
I
not
have
a ton
faith
to
in you.
remember. But I'm gonna need to.
You can do this. Let me know when you're ready. We'll count
What
you in.
episodes have we? Okay, you want to count me in, Elayna?
Yes. Okay. So let's count you in. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so Dean made a deal to save Sam. Everyone's very upset about that, mostly Sam. Sam's like, I'm gonna get you out of the deal. And Dean's like, you can't, because if you do, I'll die. Or if I do, you'll die. Anyway, they go back to hook up that Dean had a long time ago, and he meets a kid that's definitely his kid. His name is Ben, and that's important. And they also meet a con artist named Bela, who is very smart and gets on their nerves. And that is pretty much all that has happened. Dean's really scared of going to hell, but he won't admit it yet.
Perfection.
That was great.
Well, perfection might be going a bit far.
No, it was beautiful. You acknowledge that Ben is Dean Winchester's son, and that's all that I needed to know.
I mean, do we really need to talk about something else? I mean,
I was like, there's nothing else. What else is important? Like, Dean hasn't gotten out of his deal, and Ben is his kid, and I don't care about anything else that's happened in this season so far. The important stuff. I have legitimately like 2 or 3 TikToks saved for when that episode comes out that are just me being like, Ben is Dean's kid.
Yeah, I will probably end up stitching those because I am in 400% agreement with you.
Anyway, Allie, are you ready to do our episode recap?
I am not, but I will try.
Okay, whenever you are ready.
Okay, let me just get in the mindset.
Yeah, take your time.
I've never
done
This is the only part, I think, hopefully this is the only part of our show that gives any semblance of anxiety to our
It does. I mean, it really is the one part. I thought about it when I was listening to it. Okay, you know what? Go. I'm gonna wing it.
Oh yeah, you're gonna be the best ones are the ones that are just kind of winged. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so in this episode, Sam and Dean are looking for a mysterious death of a girl that died in the shower. Very cliche, but oh well. And they are very curious about an old lady that is apparently this girl's relative, so they don't know what is going on. And then they encounter Bela, who is a friend of this old lady, and then Bela sees the death boat, and Dean and Sam help save the day.
Nice.
No, that was excellent.
That's wonderful. You got us a good overview of like all these characters, and you got in there like Bella, and they save her, and yeah,
That's
great.
yeah.
I mean, in the end, that's what they do. They save Bella, and that's
Really, the only thing in this episode that like the
Actually
Bella stuff is all that
matters.
matters. The actual plot of this episode is
Cringe.
thumbs down.
I mean, yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. So it's now time for this week's theme discussion. And today we looked at this episode through the theme of arrogance. Does anyone have anything that they want to start with for this episode or this theme?
I don't know, maybe I'll go, if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, when I first watched this episode, I was thinking of another theme that was more directed to, Dean's issues with his father. And because that little encounter that they have with Bella, that it's, did your father not give you enough hugs? But so I thought that was like a topic that was worth talking about. But when I saw that you picked Arrogance, I was like, it is so true. I mean, it is so accurate because Bella, for example, Bella is like an amazing character and she's always full of herself and she's always very confident. But we later learn that she has like a lot of issues and a really dark and sad past in the end, right? So it's she kind of struggles with that. And even if I don't think of Dean as an arrogant person, I mean, he's totally the opposite of arrogant, but I see that similarity between Bella and Dean, that they have to hide all these feelings, all this past, all these issues that they have with their parents, with their family, and they put on a mask that that seems that they are all right, that they are not dealing with these issues. And I really like that similarity of these characters. But also I could see the arrogance in Bella when she sells the hand, which we will talk about later. She sells it and she doesn't even know what it means or what it does or what it could help with. She just cares about the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in her doing that, being so, I mean, she doesn't care about it. She just does it for the money. She realizes that she needed it. And then she has to like go back, tail between her legs, to ask for help. So it's really obvious, like how arrogance can lead you to, eventually having to ask for help and having to drop your ego and your pride.
Yeah, she does have to like swallow her pride. And it's interesting because like she has this like arrogance about that, which is interesting. And like, we don't know this yet about Bella, but like, we're going to find out some stuff about Bella later on. That means that like, she knows more about the supernatural than we know that she knows. And it's interesting that like, even more so, I think then comes off as some arrogance, that she thinks she is sort of invincible or thinks that like, there's not going to be any consequences. But I also like was thinking when you were talking, Allie, about how both Dean and Bella have this sort of mask. And it makes me think about like, arrogance being used as kind of like a way of protecting yourself. Like if I pretend really hard, everyone else will think that I'm arrogant and they'll write me off because they think I'm arrogant, but they won't actually have any opportunity to see like that I'm vulnerable. And both Dean and Bella, I think, do that, where they like have these really big personas that are kind of assholes sometimes, like both Dean and Bella. And in this episode, they can like come across as assholes, but like it's all protective.
I feel like the writers do a really good job of making Bella and Dean foils for each other in a lot of ways. And especially this episode, I think Bella really just kind of embodies arrogance. Like the entire time she's thinking that she has every answer that she needs and that, she doesn't have to feel bad about anything. The whole, how do you sleep at night? Rolling naked in money. Like she's so.
That is a great line.
A brilliant line.
It's a brilliant line. I mean, it's one of the few lines that leave Dean speechless across the show.
Yeah, he does not know what to say in response to that one.
And she's one of the few characters that can do that. Like they can really like,
and she does it to him multiple times this episode.
Yeah, the highlight of this episode is any Dean and Bella interaction.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, Elayna.
No, it's fine. I love when he like picks her up and to take her upstairs. And he's like, "You're such a lush." he just
like. I mean, he will take her. She will pick her up, but he hates her. It's like the whole contradicting chemistry that they have is so entertaining.
They have like angry chemistry. They're like, I hate you, but also like super attracted to you right now.
Well, you know what's really funny? I actually, in all the times I've seen this show and all the times I've seen this episode, I never noticed before how after the whole line where Dean's like, "Don't objectify me," and she's like, "We should have," and she says like, "We should have really angry sex or whatever." When he walks away, I never noticed.
Smiles. You didn't notice that?
He's so like, she's like, when this is all done, we should really have angry sex. And he's like, "Don't objectify me."
Yeah.
Smart. And I was like, for 1 second, I did think that Dean did not like that. But right in that moment, he smiles and he likes it. And it's like,
yeah, I never noticed that
a dick.
smile.
I mean, How do you like that? Stop it, Dean.
They're both playing this game of like, I can't show my true feelings. It doesn't matter what they are. I can't show them. But what I can show is anger and horniness.
Yeah.
Those are two acceptable emotions.
I mean, he can be both, but he cannot be vulnerable.
Like
Yeah.
if Dean Winchester were, a person on Tumblr talking about Bella in the year 2022, he would say she could step on my neck and I'd thank her. Like that's I just
But
think
you never
that's-
say that to her face.
How did you get to that?
because I would thank her if she stepped on my neck. Let's be honest.
I mean,
Honestly, yeah.
Laura Conrad is she's so good. She's the absolute like light of this episode.
Well, yeah, like this episode's plot is like a big hard pass from me. It's inconsistent. It's weird. Like it doesn't like work. And I'm not interested. The only parts I'm interested in are like the stuff with Bella. And I don't think it's like the episode has no potential. Like I think the idea of like a ghost ship is kind of cool, but it like doesn't get executed well at all. And then it doesn't get resolved. It's the resolution is so unsatisfying.
Well, yeah, because they don't like the whole idea is that they're trying to get this hand because they need to destroy him. And then they're just randomly having a spell that just happens to that feels like one of the weirdest types of like, well, we don't know what to do, so we're just going to throw this in there.
I noticed that this time that I watched it, it was so random. I mean, because all the time, the only and exclusive solution to things is like burning the object,
Mm-hmm.
And this time, suddenly they have a spell. And so it was really, it was really weird. And I was thinking that, or the whole idea, the ship as an omen was really good. I mean, because usually omens are like, more subtle, like a writing on the mirror or on the wall, something like more subtle.
Something you catch in the corner of your eye that you almost don't see.
Exactly. Yeah. But this was like a huge ship in the middle of the night. So I was like, this is so cool. But the episode has a lot of flaws, sadly. But yeah, I mean, it's like what I was thinking is like, how was Sam reading the spell under the rain? Did the pages not get wet? That was a no for me. I mean, why was he reading a spell under the rain? I mean, it was not just like sparkly rain.
No, that was like a pouring rain.
Torrential rain. Torrential rain. Like that's wrecking your book. You're not also like I think he's holding a flashlight, but like that flashlight's gonna do jack shit in the rain. Is he even holding a flashlight?
No, he wasn't.
So Sam can't fucking see anything.
And
Sam cannot see what's going on at all. He's staring at a page that is muddled with the ink, getting wrecked.
And he's reading the spell proficiently. I mean,
yeah.
What is
and he also the candles didn't go out for a really long time. The candles should have gone out immediately.
The candles shouldn't have been able to be lit if it was that rainy. You get like candles when it's that rainy.
It doesn't. The candles are lit before it starts raining.
Okay, that's.
But they stay lit like a good 10 seconds into the I was like, there's no way. It's just so funny. Like, I don't know how they staged that, but it was ridiculous.
I don't know why they were like, this will feel believable. I mean, but it feels very like, we'll talk about this in Lost Canon, but it's very hand wavy. It works.
The one good thing that came from the rain thing was Dean protecting Bella. It was like the one good thing that came out of it.
Yeah, that moment is really, I think that moment is really nice because like they have been like doing this back and forth. And like after she screws them over, like they both jump to assumptions. Both Sam and Dean jumps to like assumptions about her guilt. Like they have a lot of arrogance to assume that like the story is as simple as, oh, she killed someone, she must be a bad person. Like since when is like everyone who's being hunted by a spirit like deserving of their fate? Like their whole thing is that they don't, their whole thing is that like even if you like made a mistake, like you don't deserve to die. That came up in Folsom Prison Blues, like when Dean says, just because these people like committed crimes doesn't mean they deserve to die. And like
I think it comes from a place of just being really mad with Bella. Like she screwed them over so many times.
and she made it look way harder for them to get the case on. And like I totally get that. And so like, but what I like about that is that like when push comes to shove, they do still go to help her, and Dean does still protect her in that moment. Like they're not, they are kind of an asshole to her, in that moment, but they still follow through on the actual like helping her thing, which I guess is realistic.
It's also, I love the moment where Dean responds to because he says the line, "You're so damaged," when she pays them the $10,000 instead of saying thank you.
Yeah, because he's like, well, it's hard easier to say, it's easier to give us money than say thank you.
Yeah, but it was the fact that that he calls her damaged, and she says like takes one to no one, and he smiles. Because
well, how many times has Dean, like across the series, how many times does Dean like give food to someone or like, you know, like throw them a beer or like give them a mixtape because he's like, I screwed up and I'm apologizing. Like Dean Winchester is the king of like, I don't apologize with my words. I only apologize with my.
But you know what? I think it's different for Dean because, as you said, for example, the mixtape, the dreaded mixtape, but it's something more sentimental. But like the fact that she was just giving them money was like super offensive to Dean, and he was like, "Yes, bitch." I mean,
and I feel like he's also still sore about Bad Day at Black Rock because like she stole all those tickets.
Right? He's like, that was our money anyway.
Yeah,
which kind of fair, but also like kind of not.
But she stole like $46,000 worth of scratch off tickets and then gave them $10,000. I'm like, Bella, you could have at least met them.
You could have done better.
Yeah. So at the same time, I'm like, we are on the Winchester's side because we know them. But Bella like has had 2 interactions with them. Both of those interactions pretty crappy. And she's like, I am just trying to live my life. Like, screw off.
Yeah.
Like,
I know. And it's like, I don't even know you guys. I'm trying to like go back to my life. And what you were saying about Dean being still sore about the tickets thing, it then goes to Sam being sore because she shot him. and Sam goes to have this whole attitude with her through the episode. I mean, it's so funny to see, snappy Sam.
I'd have an attitude if I was him in this episode. Like, good God.
It's funny because like Sam, they both have an attitude towards Bella, like, but we like talk about Dean's a lot more because it's really obvious. But like Sam also has Sam is just constantly making like tiny little smirky comments, like tiny little
so entertaining. And he's so angry. I mean, you can see it in his face that he really wants to like choke this woman to death, but he won't, right? So it's really entertaining to see Sam. It reminds me now on retrospect, like with Solar Sam. I mean, that's what I was reminded of. If Solar Sam had been younger, it would have been like a lot worse, I believe.
Oh yeah, because younger Sam has like way less control of his rage than older Sam. Like it's one of the like lovely bits of character development I think with Sam is like watching him work through how to be angry and how to have boundaries. Like I love that about Sam, like is that he is this character that has like a lot of internal anger for really, really valid trauma related reasons, but like grows to handle it better and better as the show goes on. But I think you're right. Like this, I like part of the reason I love like young Sam is because he's just so like volatile.
He's snarky as fuck.
That's the word, volatile.
He's just like a hair's breadth, and like that maybe is a good segue into like talking about Sam in general this episode because there's a couple of scenes with him talking to Dean about the deal that are like good.
When Sam was like not talking about what he did with the cold, Sam is again being this really snarky thing, but Dean is so angry, so it's really funny to see Sam messing with Dean for a very, very serious thing that he did, right?
And I love it that like even like in terms of the theme, like arrogance, Sam, we've talked about this on the show a number of times about how like Dean will do reckless things without thinking about them at all. Where Sam will like think about the reckless thing and then do it anyway. And like, this is another example of like, I think Sam and like that little bit of like, whether it's bravado or arrogance, like there's a bit of a line there, like it can kind of be both. But like Sam just being like, Crossroad Demon wasn't going to kill me. I can walk in there and be like, Dean says to him, you could have gotten yourself killed. And he was like, I didn't. He's like, I am a big shot. He's like, Sam knows he's a big shot right now. And it's great.
I I mean, and the thing is that he was probably scared as shit. And then when he realizes that he did not get killed, he's like, I'm the best because I did not get killed. But he could have. I mean,
because you think about it, they really in these early seasons had not had a lot of interactions with demons yet. So demons were still very threatening sort of force in the show. And so like for him to have made it out of that situation, I feel like, yeah, you're right. He was feeling very in his feelings.
Because eventually it's like, you know, with Crowley in the future, like they're not even scared of demons anymore. But at that time, I mean, they didn't know a lot about them, so they had to be scared at least a little bit.
Yeah, we only see demons every handful of episodes now, and that's really only since like, you know, now, like we've seen more demons in season 3 than we did like
because they all busted out.
But the thing, that's another piece like related to Sam and like some of his like, you know, maybe it's not even arrogance, maybe it's actually just like insight, because like Sam was the heavyweight. Sam survived the like Azazel's thing. He like he was the one that walked in. Like Sam is the big shot, and like even like I think of like in Magnificent Seven when Pride calls him the Boy King, like Sam is being told, and Sam's being told by Ruby. Oh, I didn't mention Ruby in my 30-second season recap. Damn it. That's the thing. But like even Ruby has been like telling Sam like, you're special, you are powerful. Like Sam has been getting this information, and like he doesn't want to internalize it, but also like
I don't think he can help it at some point.
And at a certain point, he's like, well, I may as well use this for like something worth doing it, like something worth using it for. Like, I'm not going to go evil, but he's like,
And we see a lot more of that in season 4.
Yeah. And that's literally what Sam says. He says like, might as well use it. And it goes downhill from there. But that's basically what he says, you know, might as well.
Which I think,
it's totally reasonable. I mean, I would have probably done that, honestly.
Yeah, it's not, I don't think, it's like there is arrogance in there, but there's also just like correctly sussing out the situation and being like, no, I'm better than the rest of you. And like, yes, that there's risk to that, but like if you're right, then
you make it out alive.
And Sam so far has been right most of the time, and it was with the Crossroads demon. But Dean is not happy about it because he's like, this seems like a situation where you're going to get yourself killed, and I just sold my soul to stop you
from your ass.
Yeah. Well, I love the scene between them at the end where Dean kind of realizes that he fucked up and he like makes an attempt at an apology, and Sam just goes full just off on him and is like, I don't want to hear it. I don't like, you put me through this. You don't get to say sorry for this, you know?
Yeah. I love that scene a lot.
It's such a good scene.
Because I think there's both conversations, like both when Dean confronts Sam about the Crossroads demon, like at the beginning, like they end up in a shouting match, but he starts out being like, there's something you want to tell me. And he starts off like actually pretty calm and measured. And like
per him.
Yeah, like he's trying, I think, to appeal to Sam in a way that's not going to be antagonistic. And at the end too, like I think we see more emotional, not in the rest of the episode, in those two conversations, particularly in the last one. I think we see more like emotional maturity in talking about, like Dean is acknowledging how he feels, he's acknowledging how Sam feels. He's like trying to have an upfront emotional conversation with Sam about the situation, and it's more healthy than we've seen in a while. But Sam is having none of that
but
shit.
Sam is like, you know what, I went and put myself at risk with a demon for you, and it's like Sam is so sick of it. So yeah, I mean, it's like a contrast, or probably it's like we can see all the versions of these guys in both conversations. I mean, the chill, when they have chill conversations like, I am sorry, okay, it's fine, and then when it escalates to screaming and yelling, and other times when they're just not talking about it. So it's like we can see all the versions of their fights in this episode.
That's a really, really good point. Like we see them do really well and also do really terribly at fighting. I do love like Sam's like, screw you. Like I do love that Sam is just very emotionally honest, like in this. He's like, you know,
he is entitled to be.
Honestly, yes. We are here for Sam being angry at Dean about the deal, like justified. I'm like, you know, does Dean's decision make a lot of sense? Like, do I totally understand why he did it? And also will like be like, I will defend that decision that Dean made, but also like I will defend Sam's anger about that decision.
I mean, like, the problem is that, for example, I am a Dean girl, like to the end of the world.
Same. You're in good company.
Join the club.
The way that I defend this character is it has no no limits. I mean, I will always defend everything that Dean does. I will always defend it. Obviously, defend this first huge mistake. I mean, it's a huge mistake in the end. It's a huge decision that he makes. I mean, but I defend it because he was trying to save Sam. I mean,
it's one of those really complicated situations because
really is.
You understand entirely why he did it, but the part that gets me the most is when Sam first brings it up to him, like he made this deal, like you know what that. Yeah, like you know what that is like. Like Dean went and put Sam through the exact same thing that Dean had to go through when John gave himself up. And so it's just having the knowledge of what that feels like for him to inflict that on the person that he does care about more than anybody in the world. Like I sense that he wrestles with the fact that he did that to him.
Yes.
But he also doesn't know how to live without his brother at this point.
It's so conflicting.
That's the whole thing with them. It's so messy because like they are doing the best they can with really shitty situation. Both of them are. Both of them are justified.
I mean, both of them are, and it's so funny that on further, seasons, whenever episodes like zombies or like I don't know, episodes like bringing the dead back, they always say like dead should stay dead, and it's like, who are you to speak of the dead? I mean, why do they even say those lines?
That line doesn't work past season 2, honestly.
No, it doesn't.
In season 2, it's like a whole theme.
I think that was they executed that theme in season 2 very well, and then it just shouldn't have been a point at any point after that
because they're hypocrites.
Yeah, it never should have been like a point of argument coming from them because they are not one to talk.
No, and even with Bela, like that's I think where I sense some of the arrogance with their conversation with Bela is that they don't even think about the fact that there could be more to the story. They just are like, "Oh, you're a murderer." Like
that was so out of character. Like
yeah.
I think it again comes back to their frustration with Bela.
Oh, for sure. Like,
because that little thing that Dean does. Gun fingers, but he's so mad that he just it's great. So funny that he's so mad. So yeah, I mean, usually they wouldn't like jump to conclusions like that. They never do. But this time they're so mad.
Yeah,
they're not even having it.
One could say it's a little arrogant of them.
That's pretty funny. I want to point out that the harbor that they use is Cole Harbor. I'm very familiar with it. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh yes, the Vancouver Harbor. I spent a lot of time at that harbor for my whole life.
That's great.
Because it's like one of the main harbors in Vancouver. It's like
just hope you haven't seen any ships.
No ghost ships. I mean, lots of boats, but no ghost ships. But it was funny because it sort of like usually it filmed in Vancouver. Like usually, I'm not saying they do a good job of making it look like the Midwest because sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. But usually it's like generic enough that I can like ignore the fact that it's like I forget that it's like I don't forget that it's filmed in my hometown, but I'm like it's filmed in my hometown. Whatever. That harbor shot took me out entirely. I was like, that's Vancouver. I know that building. I know that. It threw me off. It took me a few seconds to like get back in and be like, right, Supernatural.
I think it's so funny that the one episode of Supernatural that takes place in Philadelphia is in season 2. And it's, the whole thing takes place indoors basically. So they don't really have to worry about the fact that it doesn't look like Philly. But there's these like 2 stock footage shots of downtown Philly at the beginning of the episode. And every time I see them, I'm like, I've been in all of those places that are in this shot.
You're like, that one's accurate.
Yeah. And then it's funny to me because they just have those 2 shots and then never again.
No, the rest of the only other outdoor shots there are like of alleyways.
Yeah, which can be fucking anywhere.
That's no exit, right?
Yeah, with Joe.
Hilarious. Anyway, I needed to mention that harbor bit because
that's great.
There was one other thing. Oh, I just wanted to point out, I'm not a medical professional, but I have taken first aid. And the guy that dies in the car, do some damn chest compressions.
I thought the same thing. I mean, there are so many times in this show that I am like, dude, I could have done RCP. I mean, CPR, sorry, it's in
Basic
English.
first aid could have saved him.
Yeah. I mean, it's like what I think sometimes, this is my thought process as kind of a former medical student.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Okay. So you would definitely know.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that I think about every time. I'm like, why are you not doing CPR to this person? Because what I think is, first of all, John, which is another topic, was in the army. What does that mean? John knows how to do this.
At least basic first aid.
Basic first aid and basic CPR. And then not only does he know that, but he had to teach Dean at some point to do that. I mean, he had to.
We see them digging out bullets and giving stitches. So
Literally,
how would you not learn first like CPR?
CPR, exactly. And so it always annoys me in the show. It's like, just put him on the floor and do CPR. I mean, like, it's so simple.
Guess what? He'll be alive again. Like you might still have to deal with the ghost. Like it might not actually save him, but like you could try.
You could try, because you could know this. I mean, can I point something out?
Oh, yes.
I mean, I was, Dean, I find Dean extremely funny. I mean, all the time. So like the funniest part is when Dean sees that they stole the car. And what I love is that, I mean, it's a very dramatic reaction, but also very reasonable reaction.
It's his home.
Right? And it's his home. Yeah. But what I love is that Sam does not react like, oh my God, you're being so dramatic. He actually goes and talks to him. He's like, it's going to be okay, Dean. I mean, it's fine.
That's actually I hadn't noticed that. That's so sweet.
I mean, because in my head, Sam being Sam would have been like, you're overreacting, Dean. What are you doing? And, like Sam always is.
He knows.
But he is not. I mean, he is like, are you okay, Dean? It's going to be okay. And he holds him. And then they see Bella. And it's like, this woman.
I love the line, can I shoot her? Not in public.
Can I shoot her? Not in public. I mean, they are so annoyed.
Oh, but it's such a good line.
It's one of the best lines in the show. I mean, by far one of the best lines of the show.
Yeah, agreed. I think all three of us had that line in our notes.
Yeah, can I shoot her?
So I think that kind of covers our general episode discussion and theme discussion.
In summary, Bella embodies arrogance.
But also not.
Yeah.
But also it's more complicated than that. And we actually really love Bella.
Yeah, that's the thing. I found myself so conflicted because I'm like, oh my God, she's behaving very arrogantly, but I still enjoy her very much.
She's this persona of an arrogant character.
I mean, she's a great character. And thankfully, I mean, I would have liked more of her, but at least they gave her like more depth, like on the show. Like later, she had more depth
than
I thought they would give her. I thought that this was the end of this character, and she's not, and it's not.
Yeah, which
we'll get to in season
future
3.
Episode. We will get to do more. We'll get to talk about Bella again. We'll have more things to say that will give us more of that nuance on her character. Yeah, next we're going to move into our going meta section where we are talking lore, the Bechdel test, pop culture, Gaydar, all that fun stuff.
The juicy.
So juicy.
We did not pass the Bechdel test.
Yeah. We don't even need to be like, so the Bechdel test, just go right for it.
No, it doesn't. It so badly doesn't.
They just mentioned that Bella and Gert, for example, have a relationship, like friendship, and they did talk about the case. They did talk about, all of the lore of this case. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, they did talk about something that was not meant, but it was off screen. So it's like, what's the point, right? So,
exactly.
Yeah. And I think it could have strengthened the episode if they had, we had gotten even one scene with Bella and Gert to actually see their relationship. I think, it doesn't, it's just, it's kind of lazy writing because, they could have put them in a scene together.
Yeah.
At the event. At the event, they could have had, a scene where they got to talk. Well, a scene where they got to talk.
Exactly. But it was, they got to talk, but it was about Sam.
Yeah.
So it was, I'm gonna get Gert in a cold shower, and it's about Sam.
It's
and
not,
that's the waste of Gert, they wasted this character that knew so much that
was interesting.
They just turned her into a creepy old lady, and I don't like it.
Because she knew so much about when she starts telling Sam all that she knows. She could have done that and told him without
the creepy flirting,
assaulting Sam. Yeah,
she could have been this ally of theirs. She is. I found that first conversation they have with her is so interesting, and she is it gives you this oh, this woman might know some stuff, and she might also be receptive to like helping them. And then they decide to go with the weird assaulty flirting, and then they don't stop. Then that's the only note her character gets for the rest of the episode. And
it does not stop at all.
It just gets worse. They just make it worse and worse until eventually she's gone.
She's literally groping the guy.
She's just like gone, right?
There's this like really gross like trope that's at play. Like there's this whole like idea of this like older lonely woman that's just like desperate for a younger man, and like it's so, this is not to say that like a relationship between like an older woman and a younger man, or an older person and a younger person in general, is like inherently predatory.
Not at all.
In this context, the way that they play it off is two things that I have a problem with. Is like, one, it's clearly they're reducing her to like her sexual desires and interests, and she has no other personality. And they never address the fact that like Sam is not interested, and it's very much played off as like, yo, you're a young guy, like obviously this should be flattering to you. And the only reason it would make you uncomfortable, is because she's old, not because it's unwanted. Like, and it's also like making a gross thing about like someone being undesirable because of their age, which is like a whole other thing that's just like unnecessary. It's just gross. It's bad.
I mean, and the one word that kept coming in my head was consent, right? But Elayna, you were going to you had a point. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say. No, not at all. I was cutting you off. Who are you kidding? It was the point I wanted to make, was that it's not really like a spoiler per se, but just an example of when Supernatural has this kind of older woman character and they do it really well, is that season 11 episode, Into the Mystic, the first episode with Eileen, because Dean has that relationship, in hand quotes, with, the older woman that's at that, like, the nursing home that they're working at or whatever. And they have this really nice dynamic between the two of them where like Dean is really respectful of her because she's this older woman who's like, experienced a lot of life. And they have these really nice conversations. And so it's frustrating to be able to see that happen in the same show. Means that it was always possible for them to write it like that. They just chose not to. The writing in a lot of these earlier seasons, when it comes to women specifically, is, the word that you used, extraordinarily lazy. And it's just like, let's just rely on these really cheesy, really overdone, really terrible tropes, rather than have to actually give substance to these side characters. And it's so frustrating.
I love that point that you made. I mean,
in that example, every single character is allowed to be like a full human. And the problem in this episode is that character, she's not allowed to be she's not written to be a full human. She's written to be like a punchline.
Yeah, she's not a character. Literally. She's a caricature.
Yeah, and it's really really unfortunate. And it's like in an episode where we actually do have a fantastic female character, like we can write a good interesting female character with nuance. Like Bela is that. We've seen nuance in Bela. Like, why we couldn't have both of them have nuance?
Because that's too much energy for their brains, apparently.
Goodness. Anyway, we don't pass the Bechdel test. And we're angry. And not only do we not pass it, we go the opposite direction.
We fail it angrily.
So get this. I was looking into the lore. I have more stuff for Lost Cannon Jar than I do for lore today, other than the Castiel reference.
Which I never noticed before.
I mean, if I had not read this document, I would have gone to my grave and not noticed.
It's just a list of like a bunch of supernatural beings that Sam reads. Like, that's the context. It's in the spell. It's just one of the names that he reads. But like, it's
how
fun.
Did they come? I'm very curious as to how they wrote, whatever the spell was, and how eventually someone said, you know what, there was a spell in season 3 that had this name that I like that we are going to put on the angel. Like, who did that?
I would be surprised. I would think, especially since it's a one-off writer, my guess is that like it's literal throwaway and nobody even noticed it until the fans noticed it.
It is a classic example of something Abigail and I were talking about earlier today when the trailer for the Winchesters dropped, which is that almost everything good in Supernatural is a fucking accident. And it just, that feels like, especially now knowing it was a one-off writer, he literally just, that guy Googled
he just listed supernatural creatures
and then didn't do anything. But because it's there and now we have it, it is part of canon that Sam uses this spell. In my heart, I'm like, oh my God, is this like he said all of the names of these creatures and that kind of like woke them up and made them pay attention to the Winchesters. And that's how Cass, because Cass shows up 10 episodes later.
Yeah, it's not a lot. Like
not a lot of time.
I mean,
so that's my new headcanon that I've developed.
It's Sam having a hand in saving Dean, just like he wanted.
Oh,
just like he, oh my God, I didn't
no, you can't. It doesn't make any sense, but I needed to say it and be
Abigail,
like,
you need 10 years dungeon for that statement.
I am going to leave this meeting in this moment. I cannot deal with this pain.
Thank you for joining us, Allie. I bid you good night.
I will exit right now. Thank you very much.
I need to sit in a corner and think about that one. Anyway.
Do we have any other lore that we want to talk about that's important?
Non-painful lore only, please.
Yeah.
Oh, do we have any of that in this episode?
I don't.
There's some dumb stuff I want to talk about, but that's lost canon, not lore. We move to Lost Canon Jar next. This is where we talk about things that make no sense or are explicitly contradicted later on. This episode is entirely based on like the dumbest weird water spirit effect.
Yeah, that just never occurs again.
The power of hugs, but also like he's killing his brother, but also he's I don't know what's happening.
I don't know what happened. I mean, at first, when I began watching the show, there were a lot of episodes that I was like, what happened here? So what happened was, as watching it the first time, I wondered, am I dumb? I wondered, did I not pay attention? I wondered, is this bad writing? I wondered, do I have to wait for more information to get it? So it's been a whole ride with this show. And that happened in this episode with the rain and with the brothers. And it's so confusing.
You're like, no, this was just like writing and directing choices that are just
not good ones.
Not good ones. Like visually, is it pretty entertaining to watch the sleet rain and them all falling over? Like, is that funny? Like, yes. But like,
it's cool,
does it
but
work?
It does not work.
No, it makes the ghosts do the kill. Ghosts, like, I genuinely do not know how they resolve this. Like, do the ghosts cancel each other out?
Yeah,
exactly. That's a very good theory. Like, they cancel each other.
But like, no, ghosts don't generally do that. Like, occasionally, but like never, not in this way ever.
I think the way that they tried to play it off is that the ghost is killing people who killed their family members. And so then like getting to kill his own family member, even though that family member's dead and they turn to water.
It's so weird because after that, Bela goes like, very smart. You gave him what he wanted, brother. But it's like, did he want to kill his brother? Did he want to like make peace with his brother?
Right.
It's not there. I mean, what happened? And going back to the Sam reading on the rain thing, like how? I will never forget.
First of all, how dare you?
The rain.
I mean, I can barely walk under the rain. How can I read under the rain?
Right, like, and the kind of wind that there is too, because there's also crazy wind. So like, we had a windstorm the last like 3 days where I live, and I had to stand at the bus stop yesterday for like 25 minutes waiting for a bus that was super late because of the wind. And it was not raining. It was like dripping a tiny bit. And I was like having a hard time standing up, not getting like rocked off my feet. I was like bouncing on my feet so I wouldn't like fall over with this crazy wind. And it was like wind that looked very similar in emphasis to the wind in this episode. Like, how are they not? Plus the rain. You're not reading shit. I could barely look at my phone because the wind was like kept.
And I was thinking that, I mean, if you had a smartphone, I mean, you could probably read a little better, but your phone will be wet and then you have put it in rice or something. So it does not work in any way. So
no.
You know what they should have done? They should have put the plot in rice. That would have maybe saved it.
the script.
Revive this plot.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah, it's like this
the
script is
script in
broken.
rice.
Can we set it in rice to make it work again?
we see
I mean, the one thing that worked with the rain again was Bella and Dean. Like Dean guarding Bella. It was
And
like
it looks
nice.
cool.
It looks
Like,
cool.
it's
because
unique to Supernatural. They don't show a lot of experiences of like lots of rain, like storms and stuff, which it's visually cool.
Yeah. I feel like the way that the ghost kills his brother in this episode or finishes off his brother or hugs his brother, we don't really know. The way that sequence is literally just exists so they'll have something cool to put in the sizzle reel for the season finale. Like,
Yeah.
look at these water ghosts.
Yeah, it's also like like water ghosts. We've never had water ghosts. Like we've never anyway. We now have it's like Supernatural going back to like its season 1 thing of how many different ways can a spirit like disappear. / die / go into the
because
void.
they totally ignored the part where they had to burn the hand. I mean, it's like, okay, that doesn't matter. We can do something else.
Right, like the hand is still out there. Like what? And that's the lore inconsistency that like especially bugs me. Because like the dumb way of getting rid of the spirits, like them hugging or dying or
because
killing,
the whole show, it's like you have to burn this object, you have to burn the body. It's like you learn it by heart.
Yeah.
That's the way to get rid of a spirit, and then they just don't do that here.
Yeah,
according
but
to
this
this
one
writer.
you don't
According
need
to this unique writer.
So like I would be okay if they were like, there's also another way to get rid of a spirit. If they used it again, but they don't use it again. It's lost canon. It goes in the jar. It goes in the lost canon jar. Elayna has written it on a piece of paper. It is in the lost canon jar.
You literally have a jar? I'm on the floor. This is amazing.
Yeah.
The amount of commitment.
So we're going to move to pop culture. There's a lot in this episode. So I think we're just going to kind of pick our few favorites. So we won't talk about all of them today, but we will pick our few favorites.
The Hand of Glory having a mention in Potter is always what I think of. Like when it came up in Supernatural, that was the very first thing I thought of was the fact that it was in Harry Potter.
It's a good reference. I also really appreciate the like Purim reference. Like I like that. I mean, there's a like I'm not someone who can speak with any authority on this, but like there are a number of like Supernatural content creators, I think a couple of podcasters as well, that have really in-depth theories about the Winchesters being Jewish. And
awesome.
I really love some of these theories. They're lovely.
Fun.
They're really cool. And they add this like really interesting complexity to the way they relate to like religion and spirituality and faith.
Oh, I love that.
I will try and remember when this episode comes out to link to a couple of those creators in the show notes. I think there's actually a podcast. I think it's called Malak Radio. And they are specifically focusing on that in their rewatch.
That's
anyway,
wonderful.
Yeah.
It's something I notice whenever I notice a reference to like a Jewish holiday or a Jewish tradition that really is really natural coming from the voice. But that wouldn't, not everyone, I don't know. I don't feel like everyone knows what Purim is. And I think it's kind of cool. Anyway, that's like my favorite, like it's not pop culture, but it's like a reference, like an outside of story reference. And I really appreciate it.
The one I loved was the one of Oscar Wilde for reasons, because I mean, it's, superficially, you can just say that Bella said very Oscar Wilde because, very poetic of you to say screw you. I mean, that's like the superficial, simple way of interpreting Oscar Wilde.
His intelligence, whatever.
Exactly. But then I was like, there's so much about Oscar Wilde that we could like, I mean, so it feeds, the queer canon part of this show. So I love it.
Which is a brilliant segue.
Yes. Segue us, Elayna. Segue us.
I would like to use this opportunity as we dive into the gaydar and are talking about Oscar Wilde and what Bella knows, that I personally hold the headcanon that Bella is also a noted bisexual. And so
that's why they have such like, both have bisexual energy.
Yeah.
Directed at each other.
Good point. I mean, they know. And so it's like that vibe and the tension. Like, I know that you know that I know. And that.
Yeah, it feels like a code. Like she's like winking at him being like, and because we do know that Dean reads, because
we do.
I was just thoroughly frustrated throughout the whole episode with just gender representation across the board.
It's so bad. We talked about it a bunch. It's so bad.
Yeah, nobody gets out of this episode without being some kind of degree of sexist or rude to somebody. And that's Sam and Dean included. Like, it's just not a fun time. I think it relies so heavily on very outdated stereotypes that are just boring. And they were outdated at the time this episode came out, because I feel like there's a lot of, especially I find this, with no offense meant at all, because I know you're a newer Supernatural fan, but a lot of times with like younger or newer Supernatural fans, there are certain episodes that they'll see and they will have a really harsh criticism and be like, oh, well, why is this episode like this? And the thing is, because it came out when it did, and because the show is so old, there's a lot of instances where you can be like, yeah, that wasn't as socially acceptable at that time. But even in that event, this was socially outdated when it came out, and it was not good then. It's not good now. And anybody that would try to say that it is good representation, I don't know that I would necessarily trust the opinion of that person.
I mean, I love your point about, the new Supernatural fans, like,
and it's totally not across the board.
No, I mean, yeah, because when I decided that I was going to watch the show, I was like, okay, point number one, the show is old. I mean, the show is 2005.
The retro CW series.
Yeah, and I was also thinking that, I mean, it was televised. It was not on a streaming service. So there's a lot of things that we can and cannot have. So a lot of time, I mean, when I was watching this show at the beginning, I was like, why did they make Dean so, at some point sexist and whatever he was. But what I also love is how he grew. And he grew out of it. Again, back to, his sexuality and him embracing his sexuality. But that's what helped me a lot through the show, like having that mindset, like the show is 2005, 2007. So I had to block that out and think, poor writing, but it's 2005.
It's also something that would have been largely socially acceptable at the time.
Yeah, and it doesn't excuse it, but it does not help us explain, and it does help us have context for why certain things got missed entirely and why certain things weren't criticized or aren't critiqued at all or are just so bad.
I think all I have for that topic.
Yeah.
Well, then to move to something a little more fun, we have our episode mixtape. So my contribution to the episode mixtape today is Smooth Criminal by Michael Jackson for Bela.
Great.
I don't have much to say about that.
But, I love that.
For Bela.
That's such a good choice.
That's really excellent.
Allie, do you want to go while Elayna is?
I will.
Frantically searching because I still didn't do this. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Well, I'm really bad, as I was telling you guys, at picking songs. Even when I'm trying to write something and like pick a soundtrack for what I'm writing, I don't, because I just give up and don't do it. But I chose a song called Inside Job by Pearl Jam. It's the whole song, it can be interpreted in many ways, but it's always about inner growth and acceptance of who you are and working on yourself, and who better to represent that Dean, right?
Yeah. That's nice.
That's such a good one. And mine is going to be so anticlimactic compared to that because mine is sheerly based off of title and vibes, and because it made me giggle. My episode mixtape song is going to be Sail by AWOL Nation. Because I was trying to think of a song and I was like,
that's not a fucking low.
I was like, what's a song? Yeah. So
into it.
Literally, because of vibes and it made me giggle. I'm so sorry I don't have a better one for this week, but
that's great.
I think it's because I don't know. I don't feel like I have a lot of music that suits the mood and the tone of this episode. So
yeah, that's what I felt. So that's why I went with more of a character song, but I love it. It's great. great. It's a good episode mixtape this week.
Covers a lot of different genres for you.
Yeah, this episode, this season mixtape is going to be a wild ride.
I'm so excited to see what it turns out to be.
Oh, if you haven't listened yet to our season 2 episode or season mixtape, it is available
on Spotify.
It's available on Spotify, and I believe it is linked in our season 2 recap episode. It's a fun time. So anyway, if you want a sample of like the wild genre switches that exist in our season mixtapes.
So that brings us to our last section for the day. Now that we've got all these awesome tunes to listen to, we are going to give our blessings for our characters of this episode. I will start us off. My blessing this episode actually goes to Bela.
Yeah.
Because even though she is, kind of bitchy this episode, as she often is, it's what we love about her. And I specifically wanted to bless her for the moment towards the end of the episode when they're kind of being judgy about the fact that she has apparently killed a person of her family, because obviously nobody should be out here killing members of their family. I am not advocating that in any capacity. However, the way that Bela responds to that and is just like, you don't understand, like nobody does, tells you that there was a lot of trauma going on there, and we don't fully know what that is at this point in the season, but we will get that explanation. And while it doesn't justify it, it does give context to it. And I think it's unfortunate that Bella's character had to make those kinds of choices. And so I wanted to bless her because they're not easy choices that she had to make, but she really shows in this episode, especially in that moment when she's like, fine, I'll figure this out myself. She's so used to having to do that. And I think that that's a shame that she doesn't have to.
Literally says that, like, I will do what I always do. That's so sad.
That line really hit me.
She's been going it alone for all of this time.
Yeah. So Bela gets my blessing.
No wonder she acts the way she does. No wonder she pushes back at the boys the way she does. She can't trust them.
I just love that they build it so well. Like they build it up for, oh my God, what really happened to her? And that, I mean, they set the mystery well.
I think so.
Yeah. We'll come back to that. We'll get to talk more about that later on this season. I'm going to bless Dean this episode we talked a little bit about it, but particularly for the 2 conversations he has with Sam, one about when, after they're not able to save that first person, particularly that conversation I want to bless him for, because they're driving in the car and he says to Sam, do you want to say it or do you want me to say it? Like, we can't save everyone. And it's a really emotionally mature conversation that they have where he's actually grappling with the fact that they can't save everyone, but it's not just, instead of that turning him angry or turning him like silent and brooding, he's being like, you know what, Sam, like we need to be able to talk about this. We need to be able to talk about how in this job we can't always save everyone. And I think it's a real nice character moment for him, for a character that often represses his feelings, to try and talk about them.
Agreed.
Is really lovely. And I want to bless him for that attempt, honestly.
That's really lovely.
I want to bless, I'm a Dean girl, but I cannot bless Dean all the time. I'm going to bless Sammy in this episode.
Yeah.
Because what I said, right? He's so funny. He's so angry at Bela, and he is just not having any of it. And so his attitude towards Bela is so entertaining. And also because poor baby had to go through that horrible groping thing with Gert. So poor Sammy. I hope he never has to go through that again.
So it's not the first time, not the last time in this
not the last time
that will happen.
But this is probably the worst. I mean, if I'm thinking of it superficially, it's like the worst one. But so positive and negative things to bless Sammy for.
I'm glad. I would bless Sam for that because I think that's important.
I think that both of the boys definitely deserve blessings for what they went through this week.
Rough episode for all of us, including us watching at home. But we had a fun time talking about it.
Indeed.
Well, that is all for today, folks. Allie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys for having me. It's been such a blast.
This was so much fun.
It was so much fun.
Do you have anywhere on the internet that people can find you or anything that you are doing that you'd like to share?
Yes, I do. I'm going to shameless promote myself. Great, thank you. You can find me on Twitter as State of Loving Ed, and I'm also on Patreon as Sam Brook with an E at the end.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so you can find me there. My rating, my insane tweets, and that's about all I have to do. I'm a writer. I'm an amateur filmmaker. So that's what I do.
Do you want to share your podcast?
You guys, I also have a podcast with a friend called Casey. Our podcast is Chaotic Angels with Shotguns. You can find it on Spotify and on YouTube. We did a couple of episodes on YouTube as well. So go ahead. My podcast is not exclusive to Supernatural. So for any fandoms that want to go and listen, you can.
Well, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And again, like I said, everything all that you mentioned here, I will put in our show notes.
Yeah, it was absolutely lovely having you. So make sure that you are subscribed to Saving People Queering Things wherever you get your podcasts. We would love to hear from you. So if you've got a blessing you want to give, character, theme you want us to talk about, please leave us a voicemail or send us a message on our website, which is queeringthingspodcast.com. You can follow us on TikTok and Tumblr, where we're at Queering Things Pod, and on Twitter and Instagram, where we are queering_things. You can also chat with our hosts and fellow listeners on our Discord server, and links to all of that, as well as Allie's stuff, will be available for you guys in the show notes and on our website, which again is queeringthingspodcast.com.
Be sure to ride along with us next week for season 3, episode 7, Fresh Blood, through the theme of vulnerability. Thank you all for coming along for the ride, and we wish you a peaceful road until we meet again.